Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in with us today. Today we have the pleasure to be in the presence of UK-born Debra Delglyn, aka Cosmic Granny Debs. She's an initiate of the Andean tradition and teaches the skills and practices of the Quero Pacos. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, you're doing great.
Around the world. She studied with the renowned Peruvian teachers Juan and Ivan Núñez del Prado, as well as Elizabeth Jenkins. As a trained teacher, healer, body worker, and business counselor and coach, Debra brings a unique perspective and humor to our human adventure. Her passion is to empower others to fully embody their potential and learn to be of service to our planet. Now, I had the absolute pleasure and delight and honor to meet Granny Debs last December in Mexico.
Yeah.
I believe it was your second trip in Mexico, your pilgrimage.
Yes.
And yeah, I really feel Mother Earth brought us together, and I learned so much about nature and about really tuning in with my mother river and father mountain and connecting to my authentic self. So it was a huge transformation for me, and these skills I take with me every day. So I'm really excited that you said yes, and for sharing your wisdom in the upcoming workshop. So welcome.
Thank you. Wow, that's quite a lot to live up to. I think I might just leave.
Well, is there anything before we dive into this pool of questions that we have for you? Is there anything that you could share with us, a little bit more of your story and your special bond to nature that you have?
Okay. My story is a long one. I'm not going to go into all of it. As a spiritual seeker, I kind of first came across personal transformational development work in my late teens. The man who became my, oh dear, this is going to sound awful, the man who became my first ex-husband introduced me to the work of George Gurdjieff and John Bennett. And so we spent many years studying in the lineage of Gurdjieff and Bennett. And that came to an end for me probably in the 1990s. And I have a huge amount of respect, a huge amount of love for all those teachers, and particularly for Mr. Gurdjieff in that tradition, who of course I never met. But in all the time that I was studying with them, it didn't really touch my heart. It was an intellectual exercise for me. And so it really took until I mark my journey, the first stage of the current part of my journey, I mark in 2011 when I came across the work of the grandmothers through Sharon Macklin in California. And the strand that the grandmothers bring forward is the return to yin. And if we look at the world, we all know that the yang is out of balance and overactive. But rather than going, oh, the yang is out of balance and overactive, we need to do something about it, and actually adding more energy to that, well, the grandmother says, well, all you need to do is raise a level of yin, and they come back into balance. So I met the energy of the grandmothers in 2011, and that became a big part of my life and my unfolding. And then the following year, I worked with plant medicines for the first time in Mexico on my first trip. And that opened up areas of perception for me. And in the course of my journey since then, which is now 8 years ago, those perceptions have become much more embodied in me. And the whole kind of process crystallized, if you like, into something that I could then speak about and share when I then came across the Inca tradition, which I think I first met in 2015. So I'm really very recent to this particular strand of work. I'm absolutely not an authority. I'm just someone who loves it and loves to share it and is very, very willing to go out there and talk about it and make all the mistakes as I go. So kind of that's where I've come from and where I am right now. So kinesiology for me was a massive gift. It provided the bridge between my very left brain logical way of thinking, which I was completely dominated by before. And it kind of opened the way for me to enter a much more holistic and energetic based thinking, because the kinesiology itself is founded on traditional Chinese medicine. So it's got some very, very solid and scientific roots. And then when you start working in that way, it doesn't take long before you realize I can do this by holding points, but actually what I'm feeling is the energy is moving. And so you start to feel energy moving and you see the difference in people. And I would see how someone would be changed. We would make a small change in the energy system and everything would change for them. And so it kind of introduced me to this much more holistic and energetic way of thinking. And then really once you got hold of that, then nothing stops you, does it? Then you can do anything. Once you really begin to realize that this world is a world of living energy, the world is your oyster.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for that. Like so far, it's been like, it's so nice to see how you're actually talking as well. There's so much energy with all the things that you're saying, and it's brought up with so much like fun and joy. So I really appreciated just listening to that. I'm curious because I think you were saying that you're an earth-based practitioner. I think that
Yes.
that were more or less the words that you used. And you also said that you were doing exercises. Like for me, it's still a little bit hard to fully grasp what it actually is that you do. So I would love, maybe you have an example of an exercise that you would do, or what does it mean to be an earth-based practitioner?
Huh. Great questions. Oh, right in there. Right. Okay, let's see what we can do. I sort of use earth-based traditions as a way of not describing every indigenous earth-based practitioner as a shaman, which is what we in the West tend to do. So anyone who works with the energies, or who works with the spirits of nature, tends to get lumped together as a shaman, which personally I find is disrespectful at the very least, particularly to those fully trained shamans from Mongolia, which is where the term comes from. So to call Pahes in the Amazon a shaman is disrespectful on both parts, because it disrespects the Mongolian shamans who rightfully own that term. It also disrespects the Amazonian Pahes who have their own tradition and their own style of training and everything else. And I think for me, in my experience, what we tend to also lump together as indigenous traditions have in common is they are working in concert with, in harmony with the land, our mother. And I think that's why I use a term like earth-based traditions or earth-based practitioner. What was the second part of your question, Marlena? Remind me, please.
It was just to give a little bit of an example. What could an exercise be?
Maybe I can refer back to something that Amanda said right at the beginning when she talked about nature, mother and father. Would that be okay to do that? Okay. So it's a particularly juicy understanding from the Inca tradition that as human beings, yes, we have a human mother, we have a human father. And in scientific terms, we know that this body is formed from the combination of the DNA of my mother and the DNA of my father. In the Inca tradition, their understanding is we're not just a combination of two, we're a combination of four. So we have a human mother, a human father, we also have a nature mother and a nature father. And this formation of four is beautiful because we know it's so much more stable, right? You can't stand a table on two legs, but you can definitely stand a table on four legs. So because we each have, as it were, these four energies behind us, it gives us so much more resource, it gives us so much more foundation in the world. And when I received this teaching, and I did receive it initially from Juan and Ivan Núñez del Prado, but like I said, I was a little bit like, rabbit in the headlights when I came back from their course, so I didn't really do much with it. And then the next year I went to one of Elizabeth's trainings in Hawaii, which is where she lives. She has an organic farm. And she said, right, you're all going to write a poem to your nature mother. And I'm like, oh my God, a poem. No, don't make me do it. But I did. And I began to develop a beautiful working relationship with my nature mother. So your nature mother is the nearest river, lake, body of water to where you took your first breath on this planet. Your nature father is the nearest hill, mountain, promontory, peninsula to where you took your first breath, because they are the beings who've physically given you a body on this planet. And so began my my relationship with my nature mother and father. So my nature mother is a river in England. She's actually the longest river in the UK. I know size doesn't matter, but I like that she's the longest river in the UK. There are there are some beautiful legends associated with her. In the Welsh, so she rises in the Welsh hills. In the Welsh, she's named after a princess who was also a healer. And I'm like, oh, this is good. My nature father is he's a small hill in the middle of the Shropshire Plains, but he's beautiful. He kind of stands guardian. So since I learnt that teaching, I work with their energy every day. So that would be my practical example, is every time I pray, I offer my energy, I offer my beingness, I offer my breath, because my breath carries my intention. I offer that to my nature mother, my nature father, and my guiding star. There's a trio actually. And as soon as I offer my breath and I offer what I have in that moment, then I listen and I pause and I receive what comes back. And so in practical terms, this is one of the ways in which I work with the beings of the land, the beings of my homeland, the beings who gave me birth. And as an exercise, I do that all the time when I'm out in nature. When I arrive somewhere, do you actually want me to kind of speak through this exercise now, or just speak about it? What do you want here?
Maybe, yeah, we leave it as a what's it called? Little teaser, a teaser
Okay.
for the workshop.
Oh, you're mean. Okay. Okay. So in simple terms, it's an exchange of energy. Sure, if I'm going somewhere and I know I'm going to make an offering, I'll take a gift. I'll take flowers or chocolate or wine or a stone or a shell or something. But there are lots of times when I'm going somewhere where I'm not going to make a formal offering and I just arrive. And it's like if you're going to go around to someone's house, you don't just open the door and march in and make yourself at home. You don't go in and sit down on the sofa, right? You knock and then they open the door when you go, hi, I'm Deborah, and this is this. And they say, hi, come in, take a seat, we'll make you a cup of tea. So my equivalent when I go anywhere is I offer all the energy in my bubble and I kind of go, this is me. And then I listen, because you offer and you receive. So I offer and I receive what comes back. And what comes back then begins to form a relationship between me and whatever that being of nature is. And these relationships, they're like any relationship. For one thing, they do take a bit of working on. You know, the first few times I connected with my Mother River, Father Mountain, I'm like, well, I don't know what that was about. Not sure what the point is. But now, kind of 3 years later, I know they're present in every aspect of my life. And I'm just immensely grateful, like every single day. I'm immensely grateful for all the qualities that they bring. And I think this kind of, this gets into much, much bigger areas, because as human beings, we're ridiculously tiny and puny, right? Like, seriously, what can we do? We've got a whole world to fix, 7 billion people to mend, forgive the language. And what can I bring? What can I offer? You know, what's my capacity? And the simple fact is my capacity is kind of the tiniest of tiniest. But by forming relationships with the beings of nature, my capacities grow and grow and grow and grow. And at the same time, those beings of nature help keep me in alignment with my true nature and with everything that is. Because as soon as I tune in with the earth and I tune in with the cosmos, I get the latest upgrade, right? It's easy. You just tune your energy with the earth and the cosmos, and that's where the upgrades are. So as a human being, this tiny, puny little nearly 64-year-old granny, I bring what I bring to the world because I do perceive that people listen to it, people appreciate it, and some people anyway, and it can awaken something in other people. I think that's the real key to it, is that by helping others to tune in with their beings of nature, wherever they come from and however they do it, but by helping them to tune in with that, they can begin to step into a version of themselves that actually is like being a human being, not this weird, busy little thing stuck in our heads that most of us have been for quite a long time. So I don't know if that answered your question or left you with more questions and answers.
Beautiful. Not a human doing, an actual human being, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned earlier about integration and how integral that is. Can you, I mean, what I notice a lot, and it's for myself as well, I guess it's time, it's a process, but is there any advice that you can give to anyone that is wishing to integrate any teachings that they've had in the shamanic indigenous practices, how to then bring that into this world that we're in now?
Okay. I'm going to say the 3 things that are really useful, but usually when I start like that, I end up saying, oh no, there's 4, or no, there's 5. But definitely spend some time alone. So if you've been on a training course or if you've been through a major initiation, make sure you spend some time alone afterwards. Second thing would be journaling works really well for me. So just writing stuff down, especially if something quite big has come up and I'm not sure how to process it, then I find writing it down is really helpful. The third one would be spending some time in nature, or whatever practices you're using, spend some time in nature, because nature just helps to balance out the peaks and the troughs. And the fourth, you see, I knew there'd be more than 3, is at some point to speak with others about it. When I do trainings and initiations with people, I usually say, don't speak to anyone about it immediately. Because I think when you've just received something and it's not unpacked, if you speak about it too soon, you almost give it away before you've even absorbed it. So that's usually one of the pieces of advice that I would give, is just sit with it for 3 days, preferably, before you really say too much. And then after 3 days, you should find that actually it's settled a little bit and you can begin to integrate it into your being. I think depending on what the process is or what the initiation is, it can take a lot longer than 3 days. I mean, the stuff I'm integrating now that happened 3, 4, 5 years ago. The other thing that actually works for me really well is to teach it in some form or other. So all the things that have stuck with me, there's loads and loads of courses and trainings that I've done, especially when I was being a holistic practitioner. I'd go and do all manner of things. And lots of them have never appeared in my practice at all. And one of the reasons why health kinesiology was so important in my journey is because I was on a really well-structured course. We'd do 4 days of practice. In that 4 days of practice, we'd do theory, and then we'd practice on one another, and then we'd review, and then we'd do more theory, and then we'd practice, and then we'd review. So we're doing it in little chunks. And we'll be working with it all the time. It's like, for me at least, it might be different for others, I have to engage in the material. And then between one of those courses and the next, we'd have to do case studies, we'd have to do a reflective journal, we'd have to do a kind of reflection on all our cases. And that meant that I really embodied that work intellectually, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so there are elements of that that still work for me when I'm going through anything new. The more I can give myself space, while at the same time giving myself permission to practice and get it wrong. I think it's important. The other thing that's important for me is to do something with the material fairly soon. If I don't start acting on it fairly soon, then it just kind of, it doesn't integrate and it just disappears from my field.
I love it. Thank you, Deborah, or Granny Debs. I wanted to ask you in regards to these nature beings. You know, for some people, it's new, this thing of like communicating with nature, or inanimate nature, or as we see it, inanimate. I'd love to hear like maybe just a bit about the cosmology, or like the belief system around that, like that it seems like we can communicate with everything around us. Is that something that you can speak of?
The first thing to say is I don't think anything is inanimate. Everything emerges from spirit. Everything returns to spirit. Everything is an emanation of spirit. Spirit is present everywhere. And as soon as we recognize that, then whatever it is that I'm engaging with or having a conversation with is one aspect of spirit speaking with another aspect of spirit. We're all in this together. Within the Inca framework, let's see, what can I say that doesn't get too technical? There are energy eyes within the body. There are 7 energy eyes within the body. And undoubtedly people's brains are now going, oh, they're like the chakras. So I'm just going to say, take everything you know about the chakras, wrap it in a beautiful cloth, tie it with a ribbon, just pop it on the shelf for a moment, because it's not like the chakras. I think what's beautiful is that peoples who, as far as we know, had no contact with one another, through their seeing or through their direct experience, when we had direct experience that wasn't mediated by the brain, knew that they had openings in their energy body through which they could directly engage with the world around them. So in the Inca system, there are 7 energy eyes. Each of these is a means of perception. And 4 of them relate directly with, and if you like, have a natural home in 4 of what we might know in Western terms as the elements of nature. So one of those eyes in the body, it's actually the one at the base of the spine, its natural home is with the waters. And then the eye that sits at the belly, its natural home is in the earth. And then the eye that sits at the heart, its natural home is with the fire and the sun. And the eye that sits here at the throat, its natural home is with the wind, the moon, the stars. And then the other 3 kind of tend to function together and relate directly with the heart of the cosmos, or source. So it's like nothing is other. My being is an energy being, and everything in nature is an energy being. We're just different frequencies of energy. And so when I'm engaging with any of the beings of nature, I'm not doing it as an outsider. It's like, I'm just another frequency. Let's just compare frequencies. Let's see what happens when we put these frequencies together and exchange energy between us, which is what we as humans do all the time. We call it having a conversation or having a meeting. But what are we doing? We're just exchanging frequency from one to another. And in that process of exchanging frequency, as I receive your frequencies, things happen in my being, and as you receive my frequencies, things happen in your being. And so there's a process of maybe what I'm speaking of feels really harmonious in your being, and you're kind of going, oh yeah, that I resonate with that. I feel the truth of that. Or maybe the frequency that I'm sharing is really like, oh no, I don't like this at all. You know, either's possible. And the only thing that I can do in these exchanges is take responsibility for my frequency. So when I'm doing that, when I'm engaging, whether I'm engaging with people or mountains or rivers or rocks, I will always do my best to turn up in the most harmonious version of myself that I can be at that time. And at least if I'm not feeling harmony within, I will at least do my best to be honest about it. So if I'm having a really bad day and I go to the river, I will at least go to the river and go, okay, I'm having a really bad day, I'm having a really emotional day, and I'd really like you to help me process this emotion through. And rivers are great for that, aren't they? Because rivers just flow. Or take it to the ocean and let the waves wash it out. And at least just kind of acknowledge that what's going on in me is my stuff, and ask for help rather than kind of dumping it externally, which is what as human beings we sometimes do to one another. We sometimes, if we're feeling bad, we dump it on another person and make them feel bad instead. Horrible. So yes, I at the very least, I bring the most harmonious version of myself, and if I'm aware of disharmony, I will at least own that and go, okay, this is the deal. Please help. Does that kind of answer your question there?
And more. It's just so wonderful, because I love that, you know, what you're sharing in a sense is that everything is interconnected. And so there is, you know, I'm connected to the river and the fire in my heart, and that it's all this great, beautiful intercommunication with each other that I feel we've lost in our modernity. And I definitely feel like, you know, people like yourself helping us to get back to that connection, to remembering how we used to be so in touch with the land, and to everything around us, you know, that everything speaks. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes. Yes. And how can it not be like that, really? I mean, what a journey we've been on these past 2,000-3,000 years since the goddess got squashed and we kind of embarked on these anyway, we embarked in belief systems that don't include nature, or that see nature as somehow bad or evil or harmful. It's been a peculiar 2,000 or 3,000 years, and I'm very glad that in this incarnation, at least, I've been blessed to come to a place where I have moved beyond all the restrictions and all the limitations of thought that I was given in my early years. Well, okay, that's a bold claim. I almost certainly haven't, but at least I've got something that's opened up those doorways for me. At least I've got something that really helps me to feel as though I am connected with everything, and that as human beings, not only are we immensely blessed and immensely gifted to be on this planet right now, which I totally believe, but also, and here, okay, a little bit more of the Kara cosmology, if you like. In the Quechua, the term for our existence is really the Kausai, and Kausai means living energy. They say this is a world of living energy. So they absolutely don't differentiate between animate, inanimate, or human, or any other being. Everything is just energy, which is also what quantum physics tells us, right? Everything is energy. But as human beings, we have the capacity to push the Kausai, or to move living energy. So whereas a tree does its thing the whole time, it's receiving and it's offering, and it's receiving and it's offering, and it does it the whole time. And I guess a tree cannot stop doing that. As human beings, we have this peculiar trait that we can contract our energy systems in. We can go, this is all mine, I'm holding on to this, I'm not letting go, I'm not exchanging, and usually these kinds of restrictions are born out of fear. I'm frightened to engage, or I'm frightened I might get damaged, or this, that, and the other. But to know that we have the capacity to move living energy, and to be given the skills to move living energy, and then to be able to move living energy for good within my own energy system, within the energy system of my community, within the energy system of my wider community. Now that is a real gift, and that's what I've been blessed to receive in this lifetime. And I guess that's another reason why I'm so happy to share it, because the more people who are willing to familiarize themselves with what it means to be a being of energy, and to take responsibility for what it feels like in their own system, and then to do their best to maintain harmony in that, the more people who are doing that, the more harmony there is in the world around us, and the more harmony we all experience, and the more capacity there is for humanity as a whole to step into a place of real peace and real love and real harmony. And you know, why would I not want to get engaged with that? If there's even the slimmest possibility I can see that in my lifetime, why would I not do it?
It's potent times, especially for now, right? What the
Absolutely.
situation that we're in. Yeah.
Yes, very potent.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you're sharing. What is something you maybe you've tapped into it? What nature's telling you about what's happening right now? Like, what is something?
Okay. What was it? A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I feel, I don't exactly feel divided in my nature. I feel in the present moment, in the moment of the now, I feel amazing and I feel blessed. When I extend my awareness to what is happening in other places and at other times, I'm aware of how much disruption there is. And we're really just at the beginnings of that. No matter where you are in the world right now, we're at the beginning of some really quite intense times, to say the least. I'm very blessed at the moment. I'm in a beautiful place in nature, and I feel very safe and I feel very supported. But I know that that's not true of everyone right now. I know there are lots of people in places which are much less well supported, which are much less safe. I feel this is a time. So many of us for so long have been praying for renewal. We've been praying for regeneration. We've been praying for people to come together. We've been praying for people to leave behind old thoughts, old habits, old beliefs, old conditioning. I don't think any of us quite expected it to happen like this. But what can we do at this point in time? We can accept the wisdom of nature and go, oh, okay, so this is how this turnaround is going to happen. It is a turnaround. That there is no doubt about it. This is a huge turnaround in what we like to think of as civilized society, and it is just going to be very, very uncertain. There's going to be a lot of disruption. If I put too much energy into that, I get pulled out of center. And I have to be a little bit careful. I don't want to disengage from it completely. It's like I'm not just I need to know what's going on, but I need to have an awareness of what's taking place. And at the same time, I need to maintain my groundedness, my presence, my capacity to serve in the here and now. So I'm working with both of those, and I know that those of us who have any capacity, those of us who have any skills, whatever it is that we bring to this world is going to be needed. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. We're nowhere near an end point, and those of us who can, this is the most intense training we will ever go through.
Any advice for light workers, warriors out there for us right now?
Ground and more ground. Get your shoes off, get your feet on the ground, whatever practices you use to ground with, do that. Be really sensible about your physical being. Make sure you drink lots of water, make sure you eat good food as best you can, make sure you get some exercise, you know, do all the practical stuff that maintains a physical body and maintains some energy and maintains some flow. Maintain connection relationships with your community, because that's really important as well, to the extent that you feel able to. I know some people who are super sensitive have kind of withdrawn a little bit because there's too much fear out in the field, so they've had to just withdraw a little bit, but don't withdraw so much that you get completely cocooned. What's the other thing? For me, the practice that I do every day, which is the one we're going to share on the workshop, which we call Sami Chakri, Saiwa Chakri, is the one where I receive the energy of the cosmos and I connect in with the energy of the earth, and then I receive the energy of the earth and I connect in with the energy of the cosmos. And each time I do that, it's bringing me into alignment with my full planetary and cosmic family. And as long as I'm in alignment with my full planetary and cosmic family, how can I be in the wrong place? How can I be out of tune? And I'm getting my daily upgrades, right? Then I'm staying in tune with the information I need to be aware of. So that's kind of my key foundational practice. And then, as I say, many years ago, I heard Satish Kumar give a talk. He was the editor of Resurgence for many years, and the book, he was a peace pilgrim back in the 1950s, I think, when I was even I was barely born. He was walking for peace. And he wrote a book called Soil, Soul and Society. And I heard him speak about this. And that says it absolutely. My relationship with myself, my soul, my relationship with my society, my community, however I frame that, and my relationship with the wider environment, the soil. So as long as I'm tending to, I'm putting the right amount of energy and nurturing into each of those three areas, my personal bubble, my community bubble, my eco bubble, then if I do that, then I'm doing everything I can, and I'm not going to get pulled out or strung out by trying to fix too much at one go. I think take care of yourself, stay connected, stay in tune, do your practices. This is a great time to really focus on practices and all the things we've been saying we're doing. And I know I, for one, have been too active to actually do them. So yeah, that would be my response. What about you? Can I turn the tables a little bit? What's come on, what's anyone else doing to cope with these times? Let's have your top tips.
I feel very much the same as you. It's grounding every day. It's going into nature. Got the drum out, connecting in with the sun, and but of course, I for me personally, I sometimes wake up and I just don't feel like it. I just want to stay in bed and just like, no, not today. And then I don't do any of my practices. And then it's like, well, not today. So that's okay. Tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And not feel guilty about that. I used to feel very guilty about it. Now I don't.
Yeah.
It's like honoring whatever it is that is just sitting there and going in, and then so that's kind of where I'm at.
That's a beautiful reminder, just to be receptive. Yes, just be receptive and allow. Yeah, thank you. Marlena, what's your top tip?
Top two. I think let's see, I have one. Let's see if the second one will surface. I think, like, for me, it's been really interesting to connect to people and to really talk about the current situation. And for me as well, you know, I have the feeling that we are in the exact right place, in the exact position where we have to be right now, so that we can actually keep on doing our own inner healing work, so that that healing can like expand to the outside. And I do have the feeling this, like, for me, number one is really sitting with the many interesting feelings that are surfacing right now, sitting with the fears, sitting with the anger, sitting with the pains, really, and trying to create a stronger connection to them, so that there is it's all about communication in the end. As you said, the same communication that we can have with Mother Earth, we can have with ourselves, really. And I have to think that right now it's really the moment to use it, to use this time and to sit with ourselves.
Thank you. It's beautiful. Can I ask Roma as well?
You may. Marlena said, something that I also connect with. This sense of community and connecting with others, which is not something that I normally do so much, but it feels like I'm connecting more now. And strength in numbers, in a way. And then for me, what connects us all is prana, the breath, and all living things. Without that, then the natural world isn't possible either. And so how can I breathe more consciously, even get to a point of mastering my breath, so that I can really receive at any point, it's free as well, pure intelligence and pure life force. And then, of course, very specific sacred sound currents that almost is similar to what you were saying, this alignment to the cosmic family and then the earth energy is, I feel like it aligns me to something beyond my finite self. And so then I feel more empowered and
Juicy. Thank you for bringing that in. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I plan to take a sound healing course this year. That's going to be my next. There's just so much in sound. It's like, it's really exciting.
I can see you doing that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful. So good. I enjoyed this so much, Deborah. Really, so wonderful to have you here. Thank you. Thank you for sharing everything that you have done and that you will continue to. It's a very precious work that I think many people will resonate with and want to discover. And
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. It really has. As you can tell, I love sharing. I love speaking about it, and it's been a real honor to meet with you three gorgeous young ladies. What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us, Deborah. Thank you all. Thank you, Marlena and Roma. And we look forward to welcoming you into a workshop. We'll let you guys know when the date is released. All right.
Connection with nature.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Blessings on your day.
Bye.